Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our sacred sanctuary for the Center for Spiritual Living Paradise. Our sacred sanctuary is created wherever it is that we're broadcasting from, wherever it is that we are, because we are each individually and collectively a center for spiritual living. We create that sanctuary by means of our consciousness. And so I know that we come together this morning in the awareness of divine love, of the spirit of infinite life, its loving presence, its divine wisdom, and the idea that it is a responsive power responding to that which we are creating. And so this morning is Father's Day. Well, Father's Day all day, June the 20th, 2021. So I want to wish, first of all, I want to wish everybody a happy Father's Day. And I want to wish all of the fathers that are here on Zoom a happy Father's Day. And so those of you that are fathers, would you just raise your hand? Okay. And now keep your, great, Sam. And Mike Slattery is not on video this morning, but if he's not on the phone, I bet you he's got his hand up. There he is. Okay. And so those of you that are grandfathers, I think I should have started the other way around. How about those of you that might be great grandfathers? Let's see. Wow, Sam and Mike. Awesome. Now, how about, and this could include the women as well. How many of you have been called into being the role of a father at any time in your life? Being that for someone, for some young person, or maybe even not so young. I know I have, in the absence of a father, done my best to, internalize that father with that protective, strong, wise, loving energy is, the protector. So really, the energy, just want to say that the energy of the Father is, especially when we dive into it more metaphysically, the energy of the Father is something that we all can embody, and we all need to know that we have that protector and that strength and that kind of for lack of a better term, that kind of masculine energy that the Father represents. So having said that, let's have a treat for you today in regards to Father. We have John Sweet and Jay Cook that are going to share, do a 4-minute sharing each. And that will be in place of our guided meditation this morning. And John, just so you know, you're going to go first. So let's have our opening song. I'll do an opening prayer, and then we'll go into that sharing. So I invite you to join me in an opening prayer treatment for our service this morning. And as I close my eyes, turning away from all of the conditions, all of the movements around me. I allow the awareness of my breath to take me deep into the center of my consciousness, the heart of my being, that place where the infinite loving presence resides in its fullness, its stillness, its essence of love, its divine peace. And I know that that infinite one is the oneness of this universal life, this all-knowing power and presence. And so in this moment, I know that that one is unfolding by means of everything that happens today, in perfect divine order for the highest and the best of the continued evolution of our soul. And knowing that we are each on the spiritual path, we know that the momentum of that love within us propels us forward, deepens and strengthens our awareness with the universal presence of spirit itself. And so we are here this day to celebrate, to know the truth about ourselves and each one of us, and to allow that truth to flow through us freely. And knowing as we release this into that infinite law of creative life, that this is a seed in consciousness that is planted, that it is impressed upon this universal infinite mind, and it is active and alive and unfolding by means of each one of us and all life this day. And together we affirm, and so it is. So, certain things you can't control, like people knocking on your door. And then dog barking. So again, happy Father's Day. And you may have noticed that Molly, who normally does our guided meditation, is not with us today because she's celebrating Father's Day with one of her sons in person. And so glad that she's able to do that. And I thought, what could be better on Father's Day than to ask a couple of fathers to share a creative thought, to share a couple of ideas about what fatherhood means to them. So John Sweet and Jay Cook are going to grace us with that today. So let's see. John, you guys are on mute. So there you go. So thank you for being willing to do this share this morning. What would you like to tell us?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you asked me to say a few words about Father's Day, and well, since I am one, so I wrote down some things here. And for me, being a father, it's the best, most surprising position to be in. My daughter has grown into a wonderful mother, a teacher, lover of life, and a best friend, because we talk weekly about events in our lives. And she being a teacher and I was a teacher, we talk the same language, we laugh at the same jokes. We growl at the same frustrations at staff meetings. Oh yeah. Well, I use the word surprising because about fatherhood because of my unique beginning. And after my wife and I were married for 3 years, we were childless. We decided on a whim to put our name on an adoption list. Well, we forgot all about that. 5 long years later, we got a call on a Thursday night. I remember what book I was reading, James Herriot, anyway. And the nice lady said, we have a baby for you to look at. Can you come tomorrow morning? What? Anyway, so we were kind of stunned. This is a life-changing event, possibly. So we said, okay. So we did that, but we had to hustle off to school that Thursday night because being elementary teachers, you have to make lesson plans for the sub. Otherwise, it's chaos. And so my mind was a whirl. I might be a father. What? Anyway, so the next morning we arrived at Children's Home Society at 9 o'clock. And I remember I was driving a little Scirocco. It was not made for babies anyway. Oh, and also I had sprained ankle from a basketball game the night before. So Ruth, my wife then, she had to drive. So I had crutches. So it's, yeah. So this nice lady introduced herself and said, well, there's a baby in the next room. Go in and look at it. It's 14 days old. Oh, okay. So we walked into the room, the most beautiful baby in the world sitting in a basket on the table. And we're going, oh my gosh, this is a flood of emotions. Wasn't even in our realm of whatever. So, so this fatherhood stuff, this parenting stuff is, yeah. Anyway, and this is life changing. And so the nice lady said, well, you go home and think about it. And then tomorrow, give us a call and decide whether you want to, keep this baby or not. Well, I don't know exactly what words happened, but we must have been very persuasive because we were back at Children's Home Society within the hour and we took the baby home. And technically we were foster parents for a day because I guess rules anyway. So to summarize, being a new father was scary, exciting, nervous, and did I say scary? Yes. But it was the best thing ever. She turned out to be a beautiful woman and just, best friend we share. And since I married this beautiful woman 15 years ago, I became a stepfather to 4 other children. And the best thing about that is that I didn't have to change one diaper because they're all over 40. That's my fatherhood story.
Oh, John, wow. Well, you can know something about somebody, but hearing them tell the story, that's a whole different experience.
Well, let me add one little addendum to that. We had already scheduled a staff party at our house Friday night. And we didn't tell anybody that we had a baby. And the whole staff came into our house and there was this beautiful baby in a basket there. And they kept looking and looking. And one teacher told my wife, I didn't know you were pregnant. It was, quite an adventure.
Oh, well, the universe certainly called you to be a parent. Thank you so much, John, for sharing that, and happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
And so now, Jay Cook. Jay.
Good morning, everybody. Not to be a copycat, but My Father's Day story is a little similar to yours, John. Uh, Julie and I realized that the only way we were going to have a family was through adoption. And we did something pretty unique a little over 39 years ago. It was a brand new concept of open or private party adoptions because we weren't a good candidate. I was self-employed. All of the agencies said we were way too young to be considered. So we sort of got that phone call out of the blue as well. A physician that Julie had seen had thought of us when he had a patient who was going to put her baby up for adoption. So got on the phone, called the attorney, everything got all done. And oh my, I think it was like a month or two later, we had Justin in our home. I think there's something special that comes from being so intentional about your desire to be a father. At least it was for me. I've had other experiences with that whole concept of being in the role of a father for someone. I spent a little over 20 years as a scout leader. So I had that mentoring masculine role model was an intentional thing that I did for lots of young men, many of which didn't have a father in their house. One of the things that I've learned most about being a father is the fact that you never know what's going to come up. And no matter what, for me, the answer was always just keep loving more. My son had a terrible time with addiction. And quite frankly, I thought he was lost to us. But I never stopped caring and loving him the exact same way. Even though we had dear friends that all were dealing with the same thing, and their solution was tough love and abandoning, in my opinion, the relationship they had with their children. As a matter of fact, we lost a lot of those friends because we wouldn't join their, we abandoned our kids club. So they thought that we were weak. Of course, now that's all way in the past. My son is strong and healthy and clean, living a great lifestyle with his own family. And my biggest accomplishment as a father is seeing what type of a spectacular father he is. The time I get to spend with him, I just sit there and I'm just in bliss, watching the day-to-day interaction he has with his kids. They're not quite as close to us physically as they were, but actually in some ways that makes them closer. When they lived 5 minutes away, we saw them briefly occasionally. And now when we see them, it's for days on end, and we get to dive deep into that relationship. So for me, it's always about gratitude. I'm so grateful for the opportunities that I've had. I'm so grateful for my son. I'm so grateful that Julie took me out for lunch and got me drunk to talk me into the idea of pursuing private party adoption. And I'm grateful for all of you. So I love you all. Thank you so much for allowing me to remind myself of how lucky I am and how blessed I've been with my relationship with my son. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Jay. You know, listening to both of you sharing the feeling tone, what you feel about what you're saying is coming through so loud and clear. And I know that must be the love that you have, the love as a father, and that commitment. So thank you for sharing and really bringing some meaning, some deeper meaning to Father's Day for all of us. It's hopefully a pause for us, for all of us, to think and to feel about what fatherhood means to us and has meant to us as we've gone through our lives. So again, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Love do now. Well, we've heard we heard John and we heard Jay talk about what love would do. And that's just one of an infinite number of ways that Spirit's love moves through us. And so today I want to continue with the topic of what would evolution be without love? Now, since that is not the case, and actually what we believe in this teaching of the science of mind, which encompasses spiritual laws and principles that are universal, like gravity, that love is the very essence of the universe, that nature of love, by means of the definition of love, cannot do anything else but give of itself. And that's creation, that's evolution. That's why evolution never goes backwards. Evolution must, by its very nature, move forward. And whether fast or slow, it is going to take all of its creations with it. And especially for us as human beings, because we're the ones that balk against change. We're the ones that really get often so rooted in our opinions and our perceived, learned error thinking. We are the ones that we are part of the creations that may have the most problem at times with moving forward. But I'm still really working with the idea that I talked about a couple of weeks ago, that when we suffer or when we're feeling pain in some way or another, when things aren't working out, when we have loss, when we have life-threatening diseases, when there are people in our lives that we love so dearly, and we're seeing the things that they're going through, and we want to help them, we want to make it better, we want to tell them how to handle it. And that's frustrating. All of us, there isn't anyone that doesn't go through these types of things in the human experience. So pain is the pathway to our own evolution. And we've heard a couple of great examples about the way that when we say yes to that evolutionary love that is moving through us and let go and go for the ride, that it's amazing. And that it's always going in a direction that we don't expect. So I was listening to a talk the other day that Reverend Larry Pesta sent to me. And there was something that I heard at the beginning of this message that really captivated me, and I want to share it with you. His name is Dr. Kareem, and he's speaking about what's called biogeometry. So not going into that right now, but biogeometry is something, because it deals with energy, it is something that is very much aligned with the principles of science of mind. But he was describing and talking about the nature of the universe. And he said, you know, we don't live on the earth. And in actuality, he was also saying, we don't live on planet Earth, and we don't live on, on all of the planets. But when you think about Earth, maybe it's because I've seen all those cute little graphics of people standing holding hands on the edge of the earth. And we walk on the earth. So we do have this tendency, this mental equivalent, if you will, to think that we are on the earth. But he said, no, we don't live on the earth. We live in the earth. He said, we are inside the atmosphere of the earth. He said, we are part of the living being of the earth, just as our cells and our immune system are a part of our own being. We live in the earth. So maybe you can you might let yourself imagine about the essence of in the earth and how the earth contains cells and atoms and particles that rejuvenate themselves. And this the law of creation that is always evolving and happening from the invisible internal essence of the earth, that when microscopes and very, very high-powered cameras look deeply into the earth, they start to see one thing. And you can call it creation. Scientifically, it's called one thing. Religiously, it's called another thing. Philosophically, it has a concept that it's talked about. We are in the earth. We are part of this living being that is creative. And yet, just like all of the other aspects that come out of the earth, all the plant life and all the vegetation and all of the things that we are able to see with the naked eye and see through microscopes. And what we have learned about living, because we live in a scientific age, that creation is going on all the time, and that all these things that are popping up are individualized. They have their individual form and beauty, but even more than that, the essence inside of these things is similar but different, the same but unique to that particular species. And it's all evolving. The evolution is actually encoded into it. Now, I really like this idea of living in the earth, knowing that every part of me is in the earth rather than on the earth. Because when we practice our form of affirmative prayer, the first thing that we do is to recognize whatever name you want to use it. One of the things that Dr. Holmes used was the thing itself, because it's so broad. He meant it to be something that encompassed everything. So what we recognize is this universal, invisible, creative essence out of which all things are made. And we can look back, we can go back and peel away the layers of the things that we can see and try to get back to the beginning and to define what it is. But so far, no philosophy, well, maybe philosophies come the closest, because they talk about infinite, invisible and infinite, a universal energy that is divine and creative. And it is, in terms of what we believe love to be, it is that which creates all things. It's that which has created us. And so Dr. Holmes said that all is love, and yet all is law. All is love. We are created in the essence of spirit. And then we have been set free to discover the nature of who we are. And if we don't think, for whatever reason, beliefs, if we don't think very much about who we are, if we don't think very much about the planet that we live on, then all is love, but all is law. And so the law, the co-creation, all is love. That's creation. It's going to move through us, and it is going to keep coming forward and pressing through our blocks and our obstacles. And the more that we resist, cause us pain and discomfort. And so on the spiritual path, we begin to welcome this first idea, this change of mind, change your thinking, change your life. That the first thing in changing our mind is that we can look at what's happening. And there's a lot of different ways we could say it. We could just say, hey, speaking to ourselves, there's nothing wrong here. How can I look at this differently? How can I shift my perception? Because I've been created in the essence of the infinite nature of love. Love that sees what's right. Love that sees what's possible. Love that sees that we are living and breathing within this infinite potential within the earth, and that all of this is encoded within us. And when we begin to let go of blocks and obstacles and these ideas that we're not enough and that we have to control things and make them happen in a certain way, then this universal essence has a direct avenue of expression through us. It moves right through us. The more obstacles that we release and let go of, the greater flow. We become a greater avenue. And that includes our body, our physical body. And I want to say that possibly it affects the body first, the physical body, that the cells and the atoms of our body, the way that our blood flows, the hardening of the arteries, for example, hardening, that when we begin to open and let that love, that life flow through us, that even the arteries begin to receive more life force, more a blood that is rich. nutrients that move through our body and taking it back to spirit. It is all love. So whatever it is that you want to create in your life, whatever it is that we want to create through our center, the Center for Spiritual Living Paradise, whatever the experience is that we want to have into whatever we're going into, like, can you imagine parenting? That to say yes to that, especially when 5 years later, the night before, oh my gosh, what could be more of a demonstration than divine love moving through the individual? So everything that's going on within ourselves, within our world, is an evolution of love. And it's not going to go backwards. It's not. A collective consciousness could slow it down. But this is something that's universal. And because we are in the universe, it is going to find a pathway through us. And because this evolution is all love, yet it's all law, it can only work for us by working through us. Now, I want to give you a little example of a way that recently I was blocking the universal energy of love. See that picture right there? I shared this with the meditation group, that picture back behind me. Well, last week I was fooling around, about a week ago, I was fooling around because we're recording Zoom now. And then after it goes to my computer, I have to convert it and blah, blah, blah. And we're getting them put on YouTube so that the edited and put on YouTube so that the video. So anyway, I am watching a recording and, broadcasting from Reverend Christine's office. Here we are. I'm looking at my computer, watching the recording, and this is what I'm seeing. Me sitting here and that picture back there. And I was watching the recording, but I forgot I was watching a recording. And I saw that picture and I said, that picture's crooked. And so I got up and I straightened the picture about 3 different times, came back and sat down, looked at the screen, and was like, it's still crooked. I thought, I know how to deal with this. I'm going to go get my level out of the closet. So I went and got my trusty little level and I set it up on top of that black frame. And I'm like, yep, it was still off. I'm thinking I am so smart. And so I adjusted the picture to the level and I came and I sat down and I looked at my computer screen and I went, oh, shoot. It dawned on me when it was still crooked. All is love, yet all is law. And you cannot change an appearance outside of yourself that is not ready to be changed, or that flies in the face of universal laws like gravity. But we try. We first so frequently try to change situations outside of ourselves. Now there is an ancient story of a monastery, and I wouldn't be surprised in your spiritual journey if some of you haven't heard this story. But this was it was a thriving monastery. And over the years, due to a lot of different circumstances, the membership of the monastery, the brothers, began to dwindle. And some died, some moved, some retired, a whole slew of different things, and also changes within the order itself. And it came down to a time where there were only brothers, five brothers left in this monastery. And so the leader of the monastery, Father Abbot, they were desperate. And they thought, boy, the way that things are going, it's just not going to be very long until we close. Now, you can imagine that this caused stress and some agitation amongst these five brothers. And I don't know if they noticed it or not, but over time, with this fear of extinction upon them, they started picking at each other and noticing some of their own faults, noticing faults of others, and it was really getting bad. So Father Abbot, who had been leading for a number of years, he told them, hey, I've heard this legend about kind of a monk-like rabbi father who lives in the woods, and that he has great wisdom. So I'm going to go and visit this monk and see if he has anything that he can tell us about what to do here. So he takes the journey into the woods, and he arrives, and the very wise monk just was so glad to see him, invited him in, and they chatted for a while. And finally, Father Abbot began to tell him why he was really there. And he said, I'd just really like to know if you have any advice. Well, he actually spent most of the day there. And what he kept noticing was that this very spiritual individual that lived in the woods by himself, that all he did was just go, yeah, that's really rough. He just commiserated with him. And he said, yeah, those things happen. And that must be really difficult. And so it was coming time for Father Abbot to leave. And Father Abbot said, well, but isn't there anything that you can tell us? Anything that you have? And he goes, no, I'm sorry, I don't. But there is one thing that you should know. One among you is the Messiah. And then they finished their goodbyes, and on the journey back to the monastery, Father Abbot was contemplating this. One among us five is the Messiah. And so when he got back to the monastery, they were all like, well, what did he say? What did he say? And so he shared this with them. Well, they were just like, oh, gee, we thought we were going to get something really, really make a difference here. But over days and over the weeks and months, each one of those five monks in their own way began to think, wow, could this be? What about Brother Philip? He's really passive and he can get kind of crotchety, but whenever you need something, he magically seems to appear. Maybe he is the Messiah. And what about Brother Thomas? He's pretty wise. Yeah, he's always got sage advice. It must be him. And little by little, each one of the monks in their own ways went through all four other monks, and then even themselves. Oh my gosh, what if it's me? It couldn't be me. I certainly do not have anything that it takes to be the one, the Messiah among us. Couldn't be me. But what if it is? On some off chance, what if it is? What if it's Philip? What if it's Thomas? What if it's Father Abbot? And so they began to treat each other with the consciousness of that kind of love and reverence on the off chance that they might be the Messiah. And they also found, as they began to give and share this kind of love with others, that it affected the way they felt about themselves, and that they were kinder and more gentle with themselves, that they were able to trust more the evolution of the way that things were going in their order and what might happen. That when they came together for their spiritual practice, that they saw through the eyes of the Messiah, the Christ consciousness, the one, the anointed one, the truth of every single individual. And they treated them with reverence. They treated each other with respect. And all of the other ways that love began to move through them. They honored each other. They saw what was good. And what wasn't good was transformed within their own eyes. And it changed what they saw, because the change happened within them. And this monastery had this beautiful outdoor grounds, and people had always come there for picnics. But after about a year or so of this evolutionary change that was so grounded in love was taking place, they noticed that more and more people were coming for picnics. And that people were not only coming and just having a picnic, but they wanted to talk with the five monks. And then they wanted to come in and they wanted to be part of spiritual practices. And they kind of adopted the monastery and, took it on themselves. And they had people that wanted to study with the monks. And younger men decided that they wanted to join. And over a few year period of time, this monastery of 5 men who really were each the Messiah, the anointed one among them, began to thrive. I think it's an amazing story because it applies, doesn't it, to our own individual life, but it also applies to all of our relationships. It applies. I can't think of a problem, social, political, individual, relational, health, financial. I can't think of anything that it doesn't apply to. Now, Ernest Holmes said, if you want more, and Deepak Chopra backs this up in his 7 Laws of Spiritual Success. If you're someone that is feeling like you want more friends, or you want to elevate your friendships, you want your friendships to be more loving, or a certain more joyful, or more creative, more fun, we're told, then be that. If you want more friends, be a friend. If you want more loving friends, then up-level the love that is moving through you in your friendship. If you would like to see more financial circulation going on in your life, then look at your finances and love it and become more generous. Become what you want. Dr. Holmes calls this the mental equivalent. So in closing, there are just a couple of things that we really need to know, because all is love and all is law. So the Spirit of God is individualized in us and as us. And that Spirit is self-knowing. It is our conscious mind. It is that which we are conscious and aware of. And so when we move from limitation, when we move from, oh, I'm not enough, when we move from criticism to affirmation, to seeing the good and praising it, we open up our own consciousness and we become a greater spirit. We become a more powerful seed that is planted. And since all is law, the universe is going to respond precisely, exactly, according to that which we are giving it. So when we want more, we get to accept more.